So now, Bill, you get to really show yourself to a new generation of kids that, maybe some weren't even alive when you were wrestling. Some they're still they're kids. They're your son's age, or they're right outside. They're just freshly teenagers. You get to show them what the legend is of Bill Goldberg. And how do you feel about having to getting that opportunity to kind of do that to a whole different generation that's only heard the rumors or heard the fairy tale of what you did in the past?
I love how you so eloquently put that I'm so old, but the fact is that it's a risk, bro. You guys know it. Think about it. You guys retire from MMA and you come back 10 years later, and people think that you're the same person that you were when you left, or you're crazy that you're doing it. And I have very strong motives for doing it, but I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy. That's why I'm doing it. But why not, dude? It's not like I've been sitting on the freaking couch eating bonbons for 12 years. I've been punched in the head and kicked in the head, and Erik, you've been doing it for years, and I haven't had the pleasure of you doing it lately, but I hope that you come down and do it as much as possible.
We'll come down next week for sure. Yeah. So for people who don't know, Bill is a partner in a legitimate, serious Muay Thai gym at Oceanside called is it Power Muay Thai? Extreme Power Muay Thai.
Yeah, Extreme Power.
That's right. So it's funny because people, they try to pigeonhole you, and I have to tell people, no, like, Bill's a legitimate Muay Thai. Like, he knows what he's doing. Like, he's been doing it a long time, and he has knowledge of Muay Thai. And then that takes me into the next kind of little segment. I know that you really enjoyed. I mean, you announced for WFA, you announced for Elite XC, where I was able to fight, and Shark Fights. I want to know, so long ago when you broke into professional wrestling, you were so ahead of the curve with using sort of the MMA theme with who you were. I mean, where did that come from?
There's a dude that named Obaki. Yeah, that's the name that he fought by. He fought by King of the Cage.
Yep.
Can't remember his name. But Dennis Donifre, or I can't remember his name.
Obaki was a real short, stocky white guy, right?
Tim Catalfo, yeah.
Yep, I remember him.
Timmy and I, unfortunately, first of all, in a positive way, the Muay Thai practitioner Manu.
Yep.
Manu was our Muay Thai guy at the school, and Tim taught the wrestling and grappling. And, it was a 35,000 square foot facility back when, the UFC just broke out. I was a big enough fan, and I, fortunately, at that time, broke into the wrestling business, and that was my dream at the time, was to have the largest gym, to train at home, to have the best of the best. I mean, Couture and the guys, Fry and, Randall, those guys are training at my gym when, unfortunately, they didn't have a pot to piss in because the purses in MMA were very poor. That's why I chose to go into professional wrestling, because MMA wasn't even considerable because the purses were ridiculous comparatively. Now obviously it's quite changed, but it wasn't even an option back then. But it was a great place for me to train. I was a huge, I was a football player, man, and I couldn't. When I had to make a decision after I retired from football because of an injury, I was between a rock and a hard place because I'd worked on my body for so long, and I was 290, and I was pretty jacked, man, and I had run across these wrestlers for year upon year upon year, and unfortunately, there was a gentleman's club or 500 that I may have frequented, and there were some people in there that were valets of other people, if you know what I mean, and I kind of got associated with the people. And you know what? At the end of the day, between a rock and a hard place, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, you know what? If you come up with a good gimmick to where people don't think you're ridiculous, then you can look yourself in the mirror and have something good. And you can use it for what football didn't give you. And I was able to be in the right place at the right time. And I watched UFA tapes. I watched, Pancrase tapes, man. I watched UWF. I watched everything over in Japan back in the day. And I developed these moves that were real moves, but I put a little twist on them. Or I took the real move and did it to where it wouldn't hurt people. Oleg Taktarov.
Yep.
Yes.
I took a lot of Sambo stuff from him. You know, he was represented by my agent, Barry Bloom, at the time, and I met him, you know, back in the embryonic days of Pride when I used to go to the parties in L.A., and you know, I knew all those guys back in the day, man, and I just took stuff that they were doing. Dan the Beast Severn, you know, I used to love watching him. Well, you know, when I jump up after spearing people, well, I do his deal with his hands.
Yep.
You know, and I was fortunate enough to have lunch with him here in town. I was telling Gage the story. You guys will love this. Gage is like 4 years old, and I'm having lunch with Dan, and Gage is, while I'm locking eye to eye with Dan and talking, Gage is stealing the food off of Dan's plate and eating it. It was hilarious, man. It was just hilarious.
Well, he's definitely not adopted.
Oh, man. Yeah, thank you.
You can be sure he's your kid. Hey, we're going to come back. Go ahead. No, we're going to
I'm just saying, you know, if I did the wrestling thing, I had to do something realistic. And my love was the martial arts, because I did it for football, and I wanted to do it, you know, at that time because I had more time. And that was the way that I could cross the bridge and mold the two and be able to look myself in the mirror.
Okay. That's it. Well, you're definitely the last person I could ever imagine that would have a gimmick that was not believable or realistic, because I don't think you could live with yourself doing that for sure. This is Erik Apple from American Animals, and if you're a real MMA fan, you know all about the UG, that's the underground, and mixedmartialarts.com. I'm on there every day, and so should you be. I'll tell you what, they do a podcast on Lineup Media FM every week, and it's hands down one of the best MMA podcasts out there. They get huge guests, and they do an incredible job getting access to every part of the sport. Check out the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and ugpodcast.com. All right, guys, welcome back to American Animals. You're hanging out with Ian McCall. You're hanging out with Erik Apple, but most importantly, you're hanging out with the man of the hour, Bill Goldberg. Bill, thanks for hanging out with us still. We got some more stuff to cover with you, if that's okay.
You got it, guys. It's a pleasure,
Bill, you mentioned a name earlier. You mentioned Manu. It's funny. I was actually in touch with Manu recently. I sent. I don't know if I doubt you know the rapper YG, but YG was looking for a kickboxing coach while he was in Atlanta. He was recording in Atlanta, and I was like, oh, I'm sponsored by Perps, which is a drink, and I happened to see him there, and he's like, oh, I'm going to be recording in Atlanta. Do you know anyone out there? You're a fighter, right? So,
you saw YG at Perps?
Yeah.
That's kind of random.
I know. I make friends with random people. But so I set him up with Manu, and Manu out in Atlanta at his gym. I mean, if people don't know, Manu is an incredible kickboxing coach. I mean, he's a former world champion. I mean, people really don't understand the depth of knowledge that you have for martial arts. I mean, you were looking to kickbox for glory at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, man. You know, I really wanted to. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to step in there with Rico and think that I can do something. But as an exhibition, I thought it would be fun, man. You know, I truly did. But the reality of the paycheck that I would get for risking my legacy at something as random, not random, but as something as different than professional wrestling as that, it did not compare by any stretch of the imagination to what I was looking for. So we parted ways, and you know, I went and rode off into the sunset, and look where I ended up.
Well, I think Bill is one of those people who experiences something that very few athletes do, and it's not a positive thing. The problem is when you have such a great record or such an image where you don't lose, you have so much to risk that doing anything is like, man, like, well, how much am I getting paid, and is it worth the risk? Because everything you're like, man, like, I don't want to ruin all these years of work I've put out. I don't want to tarnish it by going out and doing something stupid, and then everyone goes, oh, look, he's terrible.
Yeah, I look like an asshole doing something I'm not that good at comparatively to me being perfect at something else.
And it's not even just it's not even just with kickboxing. It's even coming back, Bill, against Brock Lesnar. Like, people have such high expectations out of you. This is, Brock Lesnar is a legitimate competitor that is capable of beating anyone on the planet on the right day.
Yeah, I'm Goldberg, dude. You know that. Give me a freaking break. I mean, come on. You lock me in the cell and give me the guys that you're throwing at me, including yourselves. And, Brock may be having, I don't know what Brock's doing. Brock probably doesn't even care what I'm doing. He could care less. He's going to show up and he thinks he's going to eat somebody. And, I'm not the guy I was 12 years ago, but I'm not the guy I was 12 years ago.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that you have more pressure because of the accomplishments and the accolades you have accomplished over the years. Anything you take part in is somewhat of a risk. So you have to think about things. Just like this comeback, right? You said, well, is it worth it, the risk? Do I want to come back? Do I want to take a chance? Is the money worth it? Or do I want to just ride off the sunset being the man that I am?
Well, what are you saying? Are you saying did they pay me enough for me to just ride off into the sunset? And
No. I'm saying that you're experiencing things that other athletes don't really understand because you have such a great record and such a great image that people expect the world out of you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Here's you know what? It's like going to the end of a 5-meter, platform and not looking to see if there's water in. But I'm willing to take that risk, dude, because nobody's done it. Because the kids need a hero, and nowadays there's not enough of them out there. I don't want to be redundant and be corny, but there's not, man. And if it can boost my level back to being Goldberg again, to be on TV a couple times, and being that guy to the kids, then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to take that risk. And hey, man, you know me in preparation. I hold myself in such high standards.
Nobody's going to judge you as hard as you will.
Not in such high standards. I hold myself to such high standards that I'll stay up 24 hours a day and work as hard as I can until I get that call to see when it is, and then I'll work twice as hard until that day comes. But the question is it physically or humanly possible, for that to happen? Against a guy like Brock. But you know what, man? 50% of me is 90% better than 100% of the people on the planet. So,
well, that is an amazing outlook.
Ian just got out an abacus, just so you know.
Yeah, I didn't. I flew that off the top of my fingers, man.
Well, I mean, I said this before about you. Nobody
kiss my abacus.
Nobody is as hard on you as you are. Nobody expects more out of Bill Goldberg than Bill Goldberg, and that's and maybe that's why you've had the success, in football, in movies, and in wrestling, because you expect so much out of yourself that you don't let up at good enough. You want to go to the top.